Hello there ladies and gents, welcome to another repair video. Today we're going to be looking at this Nintendo Switch which has been sent in. And as you can see, I've just got the motherboard here because I've already taken the Switch apart. I was working away quietly in the workshop. These Nintendo Switches are a little bit repetitive in terms of what actually goes wrong with them. So I'll just pop it back into the housing quickly while I'm doing the intro. But this was sent in because it's not turning on, and that's a pretty common issue on the Nintendo Switch. So I decided not to make a video on it because I've made probably about 20 videos on this particular issue now. And the reason that I've decided to make the video after I've taken the board out is because it is a little bit of a different issue to what I've covered in the past. So a lot of the time when we've got no power on the Nintendo Switch, it's usually down to the M92 T36 or the P13 USB chip. So usually just replacing those chips will fix the issue. However, this one is slightly different. So once I've reassembled it and showed you what's actually going on, then I'll actually get into what's causing the issue. While I've got your attention, if you are new to the channel and you enjoy this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so that you're notified whenever I release a video. I'm also streaming over on Twitch now, and I do want to make a point that I'm not actually giving up on YouTube, and there's a reason that I haven't become a Twitch partner. And that's because I don't want to stop streaming on YouTube. I do live stream every week, and I do still want to continue streaming on YouTube as well, but I've just decided to basically stream on a second platform. But there'll be a link in the video description to my Twitch channel, and if you're feeling really generous, you can go over there and use your Amazon Prime account, link that Amazon Prime account, and basically become a Twitch subscriber, and that helps out the channel a whole bunch. I would really appreciate it if you did that. But this particular issue, like I said, is not down to the typical M92 T36, or at least not from what I can gather on initial inspection. So I've got a bench supply cable here, which I can use to replicate a full charged battery. I've plugged in the power button ribbon, the backlight, the LCD, and the battery. That's all we need to confirm whether or not this is turning on. So let's just press the power button. And as you can see, we get absolutely no response whatsoever. If we hook up the battery and then hook up a charger, you'll see once again we get absolutely no response from the system. We don't get any kind of charging symbol. Nothing at all happens when we plug it in. So we've got a completely dead no power switch. And I'll just take the board back out now so I can show you what I've deduced so far on the initial inspection. So the first thing I do when I take these apart is look for any signs of liquid damage, and I can't see any right off the bat, but I haven't looked all over the board yet. I've literally just started this repair, took it apart, done a couple of diagnostics, and then decided to make a video because I want to cover this specific issue. So with the board back out of the housing then, let's take it under the microscope and we'll see what's going on. So under the scope then we get the USB-C port here, which I've already inspected, and the USB-C port is mint. As you can see there, we don't have any damaged pins, we don't have any kind of impact damage on the port, and it appears to be absolutely fine. So that's not the issue. If the issue was down to the USB port, it would very likely turn on with my bench cable. So that bench cable is basically just the circuit board from inside a battery, connected up to the bench power supply with 4.2 volts applied to it, and that replicates a fully charged battery. So it saves me having to worry about whether or not the battery is dead. And it also stops me having to charge a battery to be able to test consoles. So first thing I always do is check the fuse. And as you can see, we've got continuity there, so we get a beep on the meter in continuity mode. Second thing I'll do is move over to the right hand side and check this coil. This coil should have continuity, and it does. And the third thing I always check is for a short to ground on BQ24193. Now this is where it gets interesting. So we get no short there. We do get a short there. We don't get a short down here. So we've got no shorts anywhere apart from on this one cap here. Now I'll show you why that is in a minute. You might think it's down to 24,193, and this is a problem which I see quite often, which is why I wanted to do a video on it. So we've got a short on this capacitor here, and you would deduce that to be either the capacitor or the chip, but I don't think it is that. I could still be wrong, but I don't think it's this chip. So moving along, we're going to test a few components around here. So I'll check for a short on these MOSFETs by testing this cap. We don't get a short. If we got a short here, we will probably end up with a blown fuse. So if the fuse is good, it's likely that we don't get a short there. Test for continuity on these filters and test for crosstalk as well. So from left to right, we'll be testing for crosstalk. We don't want crosstalk, but we do want continuity from top to bottom on each side of it. And that's all good. And the next thing I will test is M92T36. And the first thing I test on that is the CPU. So I'll test this cap here, and that's good. We don't get any short there at all. So that side is ground, that side is the input, and no short. Next, I'm going to test the caps at the side of M92T36. No short, no short. Top caps. No. 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 Side. And no. Okay. So as you can see, we've got no shorts around the usual suspect of M92T36, but we do have a short on BQ24193. Now this is, like I said, where it gets a little bit different and a little bit interesting, because a lot of people would just go ahead and try and change the BQ24193, and in the process of that, they would probably end up melting that connector, melt that connector, and melt that connector, because they're plastic connectors. So that would probably end up damaging connectors, which means more work to replace those connectors, and unfortunately there's not generally a lot you can do to avoid that if you're replacing this chip. And one thing I will say is, in my career over the past 2 to 3 years, I've probably changed this chip 10 times. They don't very often die, and the reason for that is because they've got no reason to die. It's responsible for charging the battery. So the only time they generally die is when we've got a bad battery or liquid damage. That's the only time they generally die. It's not very often that this area is at a point where you need to replace it. So I've probably changed it more than 10 times. I don't know, I'm probably exaggerating a little bit there. But like I said, it's not very often. As opposed to things like M92T36 and P13 USB on the back, it's not very often. Now P13 USB on the back is a video IC, and that shouldn't be short because the capacitors around M92T36 are not short. So that shouldn't be short in that area. But let's test it anyway. So left side of the cap, no short. So we've also got the fuel gauge, which is the Max 17050 over here. And this shouldn't have any shorts on either, although it can do because it is linked to the battery. Don't know the input side of these caps very well. And yep, there you go, no shorts at all. That, I believe, is a low impedance line. So moving along, if we look here on Max 7762 something, yeah, 77620, this is responsible for taking power from the battery and distributing it to the system. So we had that short on BQ24193, but if we look around here, all looks fine and dandy. All short. So what would you deduce this particular issue down to? BQ24193, which has only got one short on it, or Max 77620? I would say most likely it's going to be this one, because this particular IC has a short all the way around it, whereas the other one only has a short once. And if you look at the bottom capacitor, it looks pretty rough. So As opposed to the other ones, it doesn't look great, does it? It looks a little bit oxidized, a little bit messed up. It doesn't look great. So I would say that the most likely cause of this particular issue, the reason that this one isn't turning on, is probably down to that chip. I could be wrong, but it's probably down to that chip. Now the problem is I don't have any of these chips, which means I need to take one from a donor board and I need to reboard it. That is the only issue. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this chip removed and then I'll reboard a chip off a donor board and I'll get it replaced and hopefully it gets rid of the short. So I'm going to add some flux. I've got my hot air set to 420 degrees Celsius at 40% airflow. That's using my Atten hot air station. And I'm going to try and do a clean lift on this. Nope. I dropped the chip. It's all good. Surface tension. Let the hot air do the work. And there we go. Let the hot air do the work for you. And a nice, relatively safe chip removal. So as you can see under here, we have basically a whole bunch of solder balls. This is called a BGA, ball grid array. And I'm going to add some more flux and I'm going to replace the solder that's on there with some leaded solder, so as I can lower the melting temperature and make it safe to clean up this area. So I'll replace that solder there with some leaded solder. And a lot of people, what they'll do is then end up knocking a load of these caps off because of how tight the area is. If you do, don't worry, just take it slow and put them back. And with no visible bridges, I'm going to pop it back round. I'm going to test this bottom cap again, or this side bottom cap again. I'm going to see if this short disappears. I hope it does. So that side should be ground. And there we go. Ah. And it's still short. Ah, damn it. Well, it's still short. Question here is, are all of these caps still short? Yes, they are. Okay. That's kind of weird. That is kind of weird. So here's what I'm going to do. That's very strange. It is usually down to that. And now I look like a complete moron. But this is the problem with repairs. It's never always what you think. It's never always what you think. So I'm glad I recorded this video, because it's never always as it seems. Because I would deduce, just given the fact that the capacitors all the way around max are shorted, I would deduce that it's going to be down to the max IC, not the BQ24193, because they are linked. They are linked together. So I would assume that would be the reason why. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop my bench power supply down to 1 volt. I'm going to inject some voltage into this, and I'm going to see if this area gets a little bit warm. So let's just see what happens. So I've got the bench power supply set on constant current mode, which means it's going to allow current to pass even if it's short. And I'm going to inject voltage there, and that's drawing 2 amps. And BQ gets hot. Ah, damn it. I should have done that before. I should have probably done that before. So if I zoom out here, just drop a bit of IPA there. And actually, BQ's not really getting hot, is it? It is, but it's not. So this might not even be BQ, but unfortunately I'm going to have to remove the chip because that's the next thing in line. So here's how I'm going to remove it. I'm going to hang the board over the edge of my table so you can see all of this blank space behind me, or rather behind the board. So I'm hanging it over the edge of the table right now. I don't want to damage these connectors because that would be a lot more work to have to replace them. And I'm going to set my hot air at 450 degrees Celsius. I'm going to float the chip. So I'm heating up from the bottom. You can see just about see the nozzle there. And there we go. That's now been removed without damaging any connectors. So now I can test again and just see if we've still got a short. Hopefully it's gone now, and hopefully I've just got to reball that chip and basically solder a new BQ 24193, and hopefully we'll be done. But I do want to point out that the reason I went for that one chip first, the max chip, is because it was showing more likely signs of being bad than this BQ chip. Let's see if this short's gone. No, it hasn't. No, it has not. That is quite strange. That is quite strange. Okay, this one is a troll. Alright, so let's hunt around and see if we can see anything else. I don't think we can. Could it be max 17050? It is possible. It is possible that it could be max 17050. So I think the only thing I can really do is remove it. Let's just give a quick hunt around and see if there's anything else I can see. See, that doesn't look great either. That looks a little bit burnt up as well. Alright, known good board. And yes, this one looks worse than that one. It's still a known good board. Yeah. Okay. We're not meant to get a short there. That is not a low impedance line. But that is dead short. Okay. Alright, well, let's just inject another volt. And let's just see if that area gets warm. Because that chip doesn't look great. It looks a little bit burnt up. Which means I might need to replace 3 chips now. I can probably put BQ back on. And Max. Alright, so I'm going to drop a bit of IPA here. Okay, bit of isopropyl. That's drawing 1.7 amps of current. That doesn't look great neither. Okay, well, the problem here is it's all showing up short. It all shows up short. So this is going to be a big issue in finding where the issue is. Alright, so I've been trying to inject voltage and I'm not finding it. I'm not finding it at all, so I'm going to have to remove this chip because this is the next one that's showing up short. Now, that was a little bit awkward. That was a little bit awkward. I'll need some new tweezers, I think. I think it's time to grab some new tweezers. Right, so did the short go away with this one? Let's have a look. So, the problem here is I'm not finding any heat spots. There's no real signs of damage. Yeah. There's no real signs of damage. There's no heat spots. I think this is a dead CPU, honestly. Again, we've got damage on this Max IC as well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's have a look at this one. Yeah, not meant to have a short. Didn't think so. Oh, wow. This is turning into a rabbit hole. Let's just remove this chip, and this is going to be the last one I think I'm going to be removing. Okay, so putting these chips back is not really that big of a deal, but it does mean I'm going to need to reball them. Let's see if that short went. Yeah, this is a dead CPU. It has to be. There's too many shorts on too many related chips. Yeah, I think this is a dead CPU. I'm going to pull M92 just for good measure. So just for good measure, I pulled M92 T36. Yeah. Okay. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to put these chips back. So there are certain times when you have to think, is it worth it? And this is one of those times. This is one of those times. So just summarise on this. No signs of liquid damage. No signs of damaged components. Not really. A couple of burnt capacitors, but that's about it. Shorts all over the board on all of the major Pera chips, apart from the most common one. Everyone except for the most common one. So you got short on that chip, short on that chip, short on that chip, short on that chip. No short on that chip. No signs of damage to the port. No signs of liquid damage. Absolutely no signs of any kind of damage at all. So what can I put this down to? Well, what is linking all of those chips? What is the one common component which is linking every single one of those chips? And I would say it's going to be the CPU. So BQ powers the CPU, Max on the back powers the CPU, that powers the CPU and RAM, that powers the CPU and RAM. Yeah. I'm going to put this down to a dead CPU. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to waste any more time on it. I've already got to put all of these chips back, which is going to be super annoying because I know I'm not going to get paid for the job. But I'm still going to release the video anyway. Sometimes you've got to realise that it's just not worth it. And it's just not going to be economical to repair. So I'm going to leave it there. Unfortunately, this one is going to be another no fix. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. But, yeah. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. I always enjoy reading the comments that you guys leave. And if anyone has any insight into a common cause of this, which I'm not aware of, then I would appreciate it if someone let me know. But as it stands, it looks to me like it's a dead CPU. So, unfortunately, that's going to be it for this one. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you do have any comments or questions, like I said, leave them down in the comments down below. I will always do my best to answer. If you want to organise your own repair, I don't charge for diagnostics. So get in touch using the website in the video description and I'll do my best to help you out. If you enjoy this type of content, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe at the same time for any future repair content. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, like I said, link will be in the video description to that. But you can also become a Patreon supporter or a channel member using either the Patreon link in the video description or the join button down below the video. That all supports the channel. It all helps me to keep making content. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.